I'm really, really happy to be showing this wine tonight. I'm a huge fan of Australian Chardonnay. I'm particularly what we're now calling the new style of Australian Chardonnay. Rick Kinsbrunner, Giaconda would probably be considered doing the old new style because he's kept the same style of Chardonnay since he started in the first vintage in 1986. He wanted from the very outset to produce a Burgundian style that was intrinsically Australian as well. So the Burgundian style comes from his winemaking. He makes his Chardonnay exactly the same way as you would see in any of the great cellars of Burgundy. Exactly the same way as Unclub would perhaps make their wine. So everything's completely natural yeasts, fermentations, 100% malolactic fermentation, 100% barrel fermentation with about 30% new French oak barriques, and about 22 months, I think, for the 2010 that we have in front of us here, in oak barrels with plenty of lees contact, so you get that lovely sort of creamy texture on the palate, and that slight sulfide character that you see in the Domaine Laflave as well. It's that kind of struck to match character. What I love about this, it is cooler climate Australia. It's elegant, it's refined, and yet it has this wonderful intensity and generosity with, exactly like Bob was saying, without being heavy. The amazing thing was, when I looked at the back of the labels of both the Domaine Laflave and the Giaconda, they're exactly the same alcohol level. They're both 13%. But there was this, I don't know, textural element and this intensity of flavor. It really just fills the palate with an incredibly long finish that you get on that Domaine Laflave. It's just amazing. You also get, maybe perhaps not as much of that sort of stony minerally character that you saw on the Domaine Laflave, but you do get an element of that coming through on the Giaconda as well that I find incredibly exciting. I really sort of gush on all night about the Giaconda. We've got another couple of Chardonnays here, but for me, this is personally my favorite Chardonnay in Australia. And that's personal taste, because there are some incredible Chardonnays coming out of Australia right now, particularly from Margaret River and around the Yarra Valley and Mornington Peninsula, and even in newer areas like Tumbarumba and Tasmania. For me, this people like Rick Kinsbrunner really kick-started this movement for showing just how great Australian Chardonnay should be. And here it is, this is an example from a very, very great vintage from town.
Lisa, thanks. I love Giaconda, and when I'm able to get a few bottles, I tend to drink it, and not within 20 minutes of purchase, but within let's say 2 to 3 years, because I find it's just so delicious young. Have you had older vintages?
I have, yeah. I've had both at Giaconda and with their collectors who happen to have older vintages. It does age amazingly well, and particularly well. It took Rick a little bit longer than perhaps other producers in Australia to come around to the screw caps. But finally he decided that was a decision for him, and I think we could probably anticipate vintages of Giaconda aging a lot more consistently, if not better, under the screw caps from here on in. But yes, it does age extraordinarily well. You can sort of imagine it by looking at the tightness and the fineness of this wine, how this will go on for a good 10 years, if not 15 or more. So certainly do not be afraid of buying down to new bottles. But it's delicious right now as well. Incredibly sort of big, voluptuous, and generous in the mouth, again, without being heavy, without having all